Hey everyone, how's everyone doing out there? Well, it's come to this. Welcome to my very first ever Q&A video. I'm going to be reading the questions off of my laptop here. And before I start, I just wanted to thank all of you for subscribing to me, because I now have 100 subscribers on YouTube. That just blows me away. Never in my wildest dreams would I ever imagine having 100 subscribers. And I only hope that I can obtain 100 more. So yes, thank you all for subscribing, thank you all for the support, thank you all for just watching and enjoying my videos. This is your reward. I hope you like it. Your reward where I come and I answer all of your questions. So yeah, but that's enough about that. Let's get this underway. Alright, now before I start, I'm going to say that I have the most amount of questions by any one person is from 2Mercy, so I'm going to be answering quite a lot of his questions since he asked me about 100 questions, so yeah. But I will be answering everybody else's question. This video is going to be in a lot of different parts. This video is going to be in God knows how many parts, but, you know, that's the way I want it. Alright. So, question number 1 from 2Mercy asks, is there any comic book character that you admire but have trouble accessing? I would probably have to say the Spirit. I only have one graphic novel that chronicles comics from the character known as the Spirit, created by Will Eisner. And I find it very difficult to find like trade paperback books of the Spirit in my local bookstore or my local comic book shops. So yeah, the Spirit is a character I admire greatly, but it's pretty hard for me to find comics that star him. What are some of your favorite horror movies? My favorite horror movies are the horror movies of old, whether it be the classic 1930s Universal monster movies of the 30s and 40s, the classic silent German expressionist movies of the 1920s, the classic Italian cinematic gothic horror movies from like Hammer and Dario Argento and Mario Bava from the 60s and 70s, the grindhouse exploitation films of the 70s and 80s, or the classic B-movies and just the classic all-around horror movies of the 80s, or the classic sci-fi B-movies of the 50s. I am an avid horror movie buff, and I love just about any type of old classic horror movie you can possibly imagine. I watch horror movies from every single decade. I simply do not discriminate because I enjoy watching movies both old and new. I don't discriminate between old and new movies. I believe that every decade has their bad movies and their good movies. Alright. I can't exactly name my exact favorite horror movie because that would be too difficult for me. Is there any comic book character that you think has been recently mistreated and or underused? You know, there's one Batman villain who I always thought has been very heavily mistreated, and that is Killer Moth. Yeah, to my subscriber game creator JJ, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I believe that Killer Moth is an incredibly underrated Batman villain. And he's been sort of getting getting treated like crap in the recent comics. So yeah, I think that Killer Moth has been very heavily mistreated in the comics recently. I'm hoping in the Secret Six books that they will actually induct Killer Moth into that series and actually make him a badass. Because, I mean, they managed to do that with, like, Catman and Ragdoll and Bane and Deadshot and all those guys. So yeah. Do you have any favorite comic book runs that, in your opinion, are underappreciated? I can think of two that I think are somewhat underappreciated by most people. In the 80s, a writer by the name of Walter Simonson did an incredibly long and prolific run on Thor in Marvel Comics. And it is some of the most epic comic book storytelling I've ever read. There were so many awesome events that happened in that book, so many classic encounters with so many classic Thor villains, so many awesome storylines, so many awesome characters, all scrunched up in about, like, a little bit more than 100 issues. It's great. I absolutely loved it. The other comic book run that I felt was somewhat underappreciated was the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, Green Lantern and Green Arrow comics that ran through the 70s. They dealt with a lot of sort of social and political issues that sort of established both Hal and Ollie as sort of two sides of a different coin as far as politics goes. It was a very thought-provoking comic book series. But most people sort of dismiss it because they believe that the politics and the views that the two characters express are very outdated. I don't so much view them as being outdated than just a different, more interesting part of each character. But yeah. Why do you love Lex Luthor so much? Hey, yeah, that's a joke, obviously. You know, I thought I was being a little extreme in that video when I said I hated Lex Luthor. It's not so much that I completely hate Lex Luthor. It's just that I think that there are infinitely more interesting characters out there as far as Superman's enemies go than Lex Luthor. It's just when I look at other Superman enemies like Hank Henshaw or Mongol or Darkseid or Metallo or any of those guys, and I look at Lex Luthor, to me he just pales in comparison. Is there any upcoming projects for videos on the way? Well, I would have to say that, of course I was talking to you about my Batman Nightfall retrospective. That is still sort of to be in TBA, because I'm working on another Supervillains Explored video and a few other videos that I can't exactly think of right now, but I'm working on another movie review, and I am gonna be doing some more other reviews. Alright, hang on a second, I'm gonna go get something to drink. Okay, I'm back. Just need to get a drink. When I'm talking for this long, I tend to get very thirsty. So yeah, I'll just have this handy in case my mouth gets dry. Okay. The next few questions from To Mercy. He asks, do you have a favorite superhero team? For me, it's a tie between Jim Lee's Wildcats, the classic 70s George Perez drawn and Roger Stern written Avengers, and the classic Outsiders, or the newer Outsiders, the ones that feature Owlman, Black Lightning, the Creeper, Geoforce, Halo, all those guys. Those are some of my favorite superhero teams. So yeah. Have you read any of Grant Morrison's Batman, and if so, what is your opinion on it? I have not read any Grant Morrison Batman stuff. I was a little turned off towards Grant Morrison's Batman stuff simply because of the whole Return of Bruce Wayne arc, where Bruce Wayne is traveling through time as a pirate and a caveman. I thought that was pretty damn stupid, but from what I hear, Grant Morrison regrets ever making that decision of writing, so Yeah, I'll check out some Grant Morrison Batman stuff. I mean, he did a phenomenal job. He did a fabulous job writing All-Star Superman, so yeah, I'll definitely check out some Grant Morrison's Batman stuff if I ever get the chance. What do you think of Jason Todd? I never really liked him as Robin. However, I actually kind of like the idea of him as Red Hood getting his own comic book series. I think it'd be pretty awesome if Jason Todd became like a really cool military Punisher-esque vigilante. That would definitely be a character that would be cool for me to read. What is the rarest comic you own? Give me 1 second. Alright, I'm back. The rarest comic I own is this. The first ever issue of Todd McFarlane's run on Spider-Man. The first issue of the Todd McFarlane written and drawn series, sort of Spider-Man sub-comic series, which was simply titled Spider-Man, or better known as Peter Parker Spider-Man. But yeah, this would probably sell for a lot of money if Marvel hadn't gone bankrupt in the 90s. The most I would probably be able to sell this for would be like maybe $20 or $40. I don't know. But it is pretty rare though. It is something of a collector's item. I mean, it's mint condition, never been opened, all that stuff. So yeah. What are some of your favorite characters apart from the goddamn Batman? Well, my all-time favorite character, I'm sure I've told you this already, is Green Arrow. And that is simply because, to me, Green Arrow is a character that represents sticking up for those who are less fortunate than you are, to helping out people who live in poverty, who have diseases or abnormalities or impediments of any type. That's the type of character to me that Green Arrow seems. And that's the type of person I try to be every single day of my life. So yeah, I'd have to say Green Arrow is my all-time favorite. What is your opinion on Dick Grayson returning to the role of Nightwing, and do you think it is an ignorance to his developments as Batman? Yes, I do. I'm not too crazy about Dick becoming Nightwing again, because you know what? Ever since I read the 90s Nightfall's follow-up story, Batman Prodigal, I always thought Dick was actually a pretty good Batman.